Hello, everybody. Hey, it's Stephanie. I'm live here on my Facebook page and I'm feeling a little bit better. So just wanted to check in and say hello. It's always good when we are feeling better, and I am currently actually awaiting some more test results. I have been tested for COVID twice. So I went back this morning because I kept having this fever and I figured whatever it is, let me just go back. Maybe it was too early. So I thought I'll share the story when I'm done, but it's a funny story because I was not expecting to do a self-swab. But anyway, now that I've shared that, I'm actually here to talk to you guys about something that I'm really comfortable talking about, and that is paint color. In particular, today I want to talk to you about how you can make an educated guess and not be going crazy and pulling your hair out and trying to find the exact perfect white for your cabinets or for your trim or for your living room. I want to just break down for you how to look at the color white and how to make the right choice. Oh, thanks, Veronica. Oh, you're always so sweet. I'm still a little like, my voice feels a little like, but that's okay. I appreciate that. But anyway, there's four types of white paint hues, okay? White hues, I should say. And so, first thing I want you to understand is that you need to decide, which one makes the most sense for you. So, I'll start off by describing them. You might want to jot this down, or maybe I'll share some paint colors with you too. So, the first type of white paint would actually be what they would call a blue white. You know that type of paint. It's very cool. It's got very cool undertones of blues, maybe some grays, but it is that's more sterile, cooler feeling. Okay, so that's a type of white that has those undertones. So I guess let me back up. When you're picking out a white paint color, usually there are what we call undertones, other colors there that are influencing the color. And you can see that by simply taking one swatch and comparing it to another. So very typically, you can be able to pick that up and see how it compares, say, to like a other type of white, which we would call a true white. Now, that's the second category. Only a true white has zero undertones, nada. There's just a pure, clean white to this color. And you can't tell if there's like pink undertones or, yellow undertones. It's just pure. And actually, I'm going to show you an example. Let me start going. Here's an example of a pure white. This is from Benjamin Moore. And this is actually Chantilly lace. And so people like Chantilly lace because it's literally like just a nice, clean, fresh white. And it looks really good as a contrast to something more dramatic. So if I were to say, going to be painting at a beach house, and I want to just have that real contrast, I would be going with the Chantilly lace, or something like another example. If I wanted to go with Sherwin-Williams, which I brought another example, is Snowbound or Extra White. Extra White is one of those ones too. This is Sherwin-Williams. Here, I don't know if my lighting is all that great for this video, but these are your pure whites, okay? This is Extra White and Chantilly lace from Benjamin Moore and Extra White from Sherwin-Williams. But I was just talking about a blue white too, like the first category. And you've heard this color probably a lot. I threw out my paints. Oh, here we go. This is probably one of the most popular whites that I've seen for painting cabinets, for painting trim, and that is white dove, okay? So white dove, it does have a little bit of gray undertone to it. So this is interesting to me because it's a blue, it's like a pure, it has basically, I guess actually, if I talk about white dove, I'm going to have to go to the third category because I think I just messed up. But hey, this is live. This is what we get. So actually, let me tell you about white dove. Since it's so popular, people probably want to know, like, well, what are the undertones? So actually, white dove is really interesting because it has actually a little bit of gray, like the blue whites, like the sterile whites, but it actually has some warmth to it too. So it has like a little bit of creaminess. So it's one of the only whites for paint that really are great for like gray walls. It will pick up that tone. It has a little bit of that tone to it, and it's warm and creamy enough that it doesn't feel sterile. So it's kind of a really popular choice for that reason, because it's really one of the only ones that really works with any color scheme. It kind of can balance any of them and still look white, but carry it. I use a lot of this for kitchen cabinets, most definitely. That's my big go-to for sure. Um, the third type of white paint would be what we call an off-white. And an off-white is simply, it has some warm undertones, okay? So a really good example, and this was, I think, the color of the year from Benjamin Moore in 2017, but it's called Simply White, and I only have a little bit left. But Simply White, if I compared it to, let me go with a pure white. You can see how it has a little bit of yellow to it, people. And see that right there? You can see I'm pulling up pure white from Benjamin Moore. This is this is pure white, okay? But you can see that this pure white actually has a little bit of gray to it. So I don't know why they call it pure white. But this is what I'm talking about. This would be considered like a cool white. But when we get this Simply White in here, you think it looks whiter, but it actually has a lot of warmth to it. So we would call this an off-white, even though it's white. It has a lot of warmth and some yellow undertones, but not where it's going to go yellow. That's why I think it was great as color of the year. You want to, I'll talk to you about this color too. When it comes to picking colors, this is a good one for rooms that don't get direct sunlight, that come across a little bit more like a blue tone to the room. This would balance out like a north-facing bedroom. This would be so good. Okay, and then the last type of white paint would be an off-white. And like a really good example of that would be this ivory tusk. And I'll just show you how that compares to, I'm throwing all my paints around. Here's another one, linen white. So linen white and ivory tusk are both from Benjamin Moore, and they're pretty awesome. And so they have more of a buttery white tone. So how do you know which white of those four categories? You've got your true white, your blue white, your off white, and then your creams, right? Which one would be good for you? First thing you need to think about is what's going to be in the room. Okay, so let's talk about the lighting in your room. So I mentioned that a second ago. If you're in a south-facing room and you're painting those walls white, keep in mind that the sun is going to warm up that space and cast a warm glow on that room in the first place, okay? So if you're putting in like a really warm white, it's going to look even more warm. So it might even give a little yellow undertone to it. So in able to combat that, or to contrast that, maybe what I would suggest to you is go for a little bit more of a neutral white so you don't get so much warmth in that light in that room if it's a south-facing room. So if you're in a room that doesn't get a lot of natural warm light, that would be like a north-facing room, right? Or a room that just gets indirect light, and you're going to say, well, how do I know that's a room that gets indirect light, or how do I know it's a north-facing room? Well, typically, the sun rises in the east, it sets in the west, and in the afternoon, it kind of moves its way around, and we get to the north kind of by the afternoon. That if the sun is hitting that room in the afternoon, it's probably a north or northwest facing. So because of that, here's what happens. If you put the same rule applies. If you put a cool white in there, so for example, if I put a white dove paint color in a north-facing room, it's going to pick up more of those blue overcast, colors from the indirect light that's coming in. So it's going to appear cooler than it actually is if you go with a cool paint. So what I often do, going back to my Simply White, is to balance, that's the word I was looking for, to balance out that cool indirect light, but I still want some warmth, but I don't want it too yellow. I go with this Simply White. So I do that a lot for north facing rooms. And I think that really, really helps. The other thing you have to consider is when it comes to, picking the right kind of white color is, what's in the room. I always say this, but this is so important. Whatever's actually in your room, it's going to affect the paint color. So, for example, if you've got a big picture window, right, and you're looking outside, that green from that tree is actually going to influence the colors in your room. Same thing goes for your furniture. If you have dark furniture, it's going to cast its color, it's going to influence, and it's going to make a difference. So just pay attention to that and pay attention to what you want first. Do you want to go cool? And then adjust accordingly based on what you have in the room, based on the lighting. Okay. And the best way to know, too, if you're like, oh my God, I know this sounds really old fashioned, but it's true. You get some samples. I'm always talking about that company that you can buy samples from. It's called samplize.com, and it's SAMPLIZE and .com, and it's $5.95 for a peel and stick 12 by 12 actual sample of the paint. And so what I would suggest to you is maybe get one paint in like a, if you're torn between like cool and warm, then just get two of those like cooler colors you can see by comparing them on, line or whatever. And then you'll be able to compare them and you'll be able to pull out what will obviously look cooler or warmer to you. And it will be easier for you to make a decision. So another thing is people ask me like, well, what do I do? Can I paint a room all white? And if I paint a room with white walls, can I use a different trim color? And the answer is yes. And you don't have to. That's why I said yes like that. Because if you're wanting to, it really comes down to how you want to feel. Okay. So if you want to have, like, say you're in a small room, right? This is really a good rule of thumb actually for small rooms. Say you want to have that all white, then I would paint the trim, the ceiling, and the walls all the same color. Now I would change the finish. I would do flat on the ceiling, always do flat on the ceiling. I would do a semi-gloss for the trim, and then I would do an eggshell or a flat, but I prefer an eggshell for the wall. You might get a slight difference because of the sheen, but what that's going to feel like is making the room feel expansive because it's one color that doesn't end and it's white. So it makes the smaller room feel a little bigger, right? So you stick with one color. Now, if you want to add a little bit more interest and you don't want to do that, then I would, I wouldn't do like, say, a super white with a cream because that's going to look yellowed and it's going to make it's just not going to work. But you can take a true white, like a, Chantilly lace or super white from Benjamin Moore, and you can have that with like a white dove, which is still like a warm white, but it has that gray undertone, but it's a little bit softer. So there's just a subtle difference. You just don't want to mix it up where it's extreme because then one of them looks faded. Either one looks grayed or one looks yellowed. Okay. So that is that. That is my 2 cents on paint. And then I've got one person still on. Whoever you are, faithful person, you get to hear my COVID testing story. Okay, so I had to go to CVS this morning. I made an appointment for 10:20. I get there, and it's drive-through only. Okay, so I'm like, all right, great. How are they going to do this? Are they just going to stick their hand out and come out, or what are they going to do? And so then I'm behind this car and I hear her telling the person in front of me to just turn it like for 15 seconds. And I'm like, say what? Like, wait, I cannot do this to myself. I cannot swab my own nose. But I'm like, okay, obviously I have to do it. So I get up there and I'm like, okay, I can do this. So she gives me the packet and she's going through everything. And then she says, like, okay, now take the swab out. And I lost the swab in the car. I actually, I had to go get my glasses because I was trying to open it, the little plastic part, and I couldn't open it. So I had to get my glasses out. When I got my glasses, I lost the swab. So that's going on. And then she gives me another one. I'm like, okay, glasses are on. I get it open. And so she's like, you have to take that thing up like an inch and turn it for 15 seconds, people. So I'm like, all right. She goes, all count. So I'm like, okay, great. So I did it. And then she goes, okay, you're done. 15. She goes, now, other nostril. I'm like, oh my God. So that's my fun story. But in the end, I have to tell you, I'm really glad I did it. It wasn't really that bad. And I have peace of mind, whatever's going on with me, I can eliminate that if that's what it is or not. At least I can find out. All right. So that's all I've got today. Now I'm going to try to figure out how to end live video. Oh, there's the button right there. Hey, thanks for watching, both of you, whoever you are still on. And I hope that this has been really useful information. Sometimes I get calls. It's like, help, I don't know the right white color. So I thought this would be a really great opportunity to just break it down. And if you have any other questions, you know where to find me. I'm right here at the right space. So thanks for watching. Bye. Whoops.